Hi. On behalf of the Portuguese partner of this project, the Porto Metropolitan Area, concerning our experience in the involvement in the Recovery and Resilience Facility Plan and the 21-27 program. So the Portuguese RRP was approved on the 16th of the 2021 for a global amount of 16.6 billion euros. Was the first plan to be approved by the end of the Portuguese presidency of the Council of the European Union. On that date, and based on the national discussion and public consultation previous to this approval, the Porto Metropolitan Area produced a document based on internal discussion about its position within the investments plan by the central government. We call this document the Metropolitan Action Dimensions within the RRP. This document was the first output in the preparation process for the AMP, that is the Portuguese for Porto Metropolitan Area, strategy for 2030. The Porto Metropolitan Area and Lisbon Metropolitan Area are part of the National Monitoring Council, a body created to monitor the RRP, as well as the expert commissions that make part of this National Monitoring Council. The main areas and matters are environment and energy, digital transition, territory, and social. The expert commissions also have 3 intermunicipal commissions representing the rest of the territory. Regarding a little bit to our reality in Portugal we only have 2 metropolitan areas, Porto and Lisbon. Both of them together housing almost half of the Portuguese population. The rest of the territory is divided into 21 intermunicipal communities. But within the measures implemented by the Portuguese government, one of them is specially targeted for these metropolitan areas. And we were asked to participate in the management structure of the joint operations for disadvantaged communities. This measure will have a total investment of 215 million euros. The initiatives that are going to be implemented are focused on the eradication of poverty by improving the social protection system and fighting the exclusion condition reproduction cycles, particularly dedicated to the more vulnerable communities. Within the framework of the National Strategy of the Fighting Poverty 21-2030 proposal, we have a special role that will be given by the government to intervene within the fragile communities for the metropolitan areas. Hope this contribution will be useful for the discussion. Bye. Paulo Araújo. Hi. Hi. My name is Claudia. Hi, my name is Claudia Araújo, and I'm talking on behalf of the Portuguese partner of this project, the Porto Metropolitan.
Hi, good morning to everyone. Welcome to Milan. We are happy that you are here. So let's start the meeting, and I give the floor to Antonio Porcaro.
Allora, buongiorno a tutti, vi do benvenuto in Città Metropolitana a nome del sindaco metropolitano e di tutto quanto l'ente. Siamo ben lieti di ospitare questo incontro, al quale prendono parte rappresentanti di diversi enti, di diversi paesi europei, e questo è un motivo per noi di soddisfazione, perché rappresenta un'ulteriore tappa rispetto alla costruzione della progettazione europea, sia con riferimento a specifici obiettivi, sia con riferimento più in generale alla costruzione di una rete tra diverse realtà che operano in diversi paesi europei. Traduce.
Scusi, se può spegnere? Okay. Good morning to all of you. Welcome, and on behalf of the Mayor of the Metropolitan City of Milan, welcome again to the City of Milano. It is such a nice pleasure for us to host you and welcome in our city. I am very glad to see so many representatives of so many different European countries, and it is nice to see you because this is a moment, a very important one, to go on with the building of the European projects with different objectives, and obviously with the objective of creating a European network with different realities.
La legge istitutiva delle città metropolitane in Italia è la prima legge che affida espressamente a un ente pubblico locale il compito di curare le relazioni con i paesi europei. Quindi non solo la partecipazione a progetti, ma proprio anche la costruzione di una rete è una nostra funzione fondamentale, cui teniamo molto e per la quale abbiamo voluto costituire all'interno della nostra organizzazione uno specifico coordinamento della progettazione europea.
The law which institutes the creation of a network of cities in Italy has the objective of creating as well these networks of European cities with different projects and different coordinations. And so this is quite important for us as an objective, and this is why we decided to build as well a specific section dedicated to the building of shared European projects.
Non solo, la relazione tra noi e le altre città europee e le altre città e organizzazioni locali negli altri paesi europei seguono questi aspetti, ma anche il costruire una rete con gli enti locali, con i comuni che compongono Città Metropolitana, affinché i comuni, attraverso di noi, attraverso il nostro coordinamento, possano meglio approcciarsi ai temi della partecipazione ai fondi europei e anche al tema della costruzione di un quadro di relazioni stabili, sia da parte del nostro ente, sia tramite di noi da parte dei comuni, di tutti quanti i comuni metropolitani, che sono, ricordiamo, 133.
On top of this, we ask, and the other European cities which we are working, as well as the European organizations of the different European countries which follow the aspect, we also, as I've said, want to build a network made of municipalities in such a way that the local organizations and the municipalities can best follow suit and cooperate together to all the phases of the important European themes on which we want to create, I would say, a stable network, a network between us and the metropolitan cities, which are around 180.
E per noi è un motivo ancora di maggiore interesse, come lo è anche per tutti gli altri paesi europei, perché grazie alla recente approvazione del Piano Nazionale di Ripresa e Resilienza, attraverso il quale il nostro Paese è chiamato a dare attuazione ai fondi fondi europei del nuovo piano di ripresa complessivo, è un'occasione importante di sviluppo da parte interna, ma è anche un'occasione proprio per rilanciare lo spirito comunitario. Tra l'altro il New Generation EU è un'iniziativa che riguarda non solo il nostro Paese, che comunque ha la più parte dei fondi, ma riguarda tutti quanti gli altri paesi. E quindi sono risorse che, affiancate a quelle della programmazione tradizionale dell'Unione, consentono ancora di più di inverare lo spirito di collaborazione tra i paesi e soprattutto, quello che ci riguarda di più, tra gli enti locali dei diversi paesi europei, il cui ruolo è affermato già da tempo attraverso la Carta delle autonomie locali di livello e di respiro europeo.
Okay. So, as I've said with other institutions and other European entities, thanks to the Next Generation EU plan and the National Recovery and Resilience plans, which, as you know, is an important part for Italy, but also for the countries, we find ourselves in a very special occasion because we can develop this collaboration at home and with other foreign countries of the European Union to build up again this European spirit. Next Generation EU, as I've said, is an important tool for Italy and other countries. It is an amount of important resources which enables us to foster the cooperation at the European level, again, with this spirit of collaboration between the countries and especially the local authorities of the European Union, which have shown how important their role is.
Allora, concludo rinnovando gli auguri di un proficuo lavoro in questa giornata e ringraziando per il lavoro svolto il dottor Pacente, che è il nostro funzionario che anima e ha animato il tema delle relazioni europee per il nostro ente con risultati direi lusinghieri. E quindi confido nella continuazione di questa attività sia, ripeto, per i singoli progetti europei che ci vedono impegnati su molti fronti, della mobilità, l'ambiente, i beni culturali, ma anche la cosa che forse è più importante è quella di stabilire un quadro di relazioni stabili con i paesi europei, perché lo sviluppo del nostro paese, così come degli altri paesi dell'Unione, passa attraverso l'Unione. Non c'è futuro senza Unione Europea e di questo siamo consapevoli e per questo lavoriamo. Grazie a tutti.
So, to conclude, I would like to wish all of you a very fruitful day here in Milan. Thank you all for the work you have done, especially thank to Mr. Pacente, who has been, so to speak, the organizer of these important days about the topics on the European relations, which have shown very, very good results. I really hope that we can go on this path, both in terms of European projects concerning a lot of themes such as mobility, environment, and many more, and also, and last but not least, the fact that thanks to these projects, we can build a stable network in the European Union. We know that development can be possible just through us in Italy and in other countries, and I would say that without European Union, there is no future. Thank you again, and I wish you again a very fruitful day.
Thank you very much to Antonio Porcaro, that is the General Director of the Metropolitan City of Milan. So I would like to briefly present to the Camelot Project within we are here today. So I would like to mention in particular who are the partners of the project, to present you a short description of the project, to show you the objectives, the recipients, the activities, and last but not least, the expected results of the project. As you can see, the coordinator of this project is the Metropolitan City of Milan, with the support of other metropolitan area of the European Union, in particular the Metropolitan Area Metropolitana de Porto, Stuttgart, Area Metropolitana de Barcelona, ALDA, that is the Association des Agences de la Démocratie Locale, Zagreb, the Metropolitan City of Dansk, the Metropolitan City of Bari, and the Consiglio Locale al Municipio Craiova. In relation to the description of the project, I would like to show you that in 2019, in August, Milan has submitted the proposal of the Camelot Project to the European Union with the program of Euro for Citizens. That it's a program which aims at promoting the exchange of the best practices on strategic European issues in order to strengthen the international cooperation. In the end of 2019, EASEA, that is the European agency, has communicated to Metropolitan City of Milan the granting of the proposal for the implementation of the activities. The Camelot Project has started in 2020, in particular the 1st of March of 2020, and it will finish in 2023 because we have asked for extension of 1 year in order to implement all the activities that we plan in the proposal. So we are going to build a network of urban and the metropolitan, we are going to exchange experience on the management of the European funds through the network of urban and metropolitan areas. Which are the objectives of this project? They are a lot, and we can list, for example, to build thematic networks of European cities, to bring citizens close to the European institution, to increase a proper use of European funds in urban and metropolitan areas, to fight the Euroscepticism, also to share the knowledge to citizens comparing different experience of governance, to create also an awareness about the European identity and the institution, and last but not least, to increase the pro-civic participation in political decision. How we would like to reach all these so important objectives. The fil rouge is to organize roundtables and meetings, and in order to show to people, to citizens, how are important the European foundings in order to improve the life of cities and their citizens. We would like, that is why we would like to encourage the civil participation of citizens in order to make them participant of the making process. Then all these objectives could be joined only through two main activities that are the international events and the local activities. We foresee to organize 8 international events in addition to one that we organized last year during the European Week of the Region. The conference will represent a moment in which citizens are able to acquire the fundamental knowledge of their European institution and and decision-making processes in order to consolidate a real and mature European citizenship. The project would like also to create a debate on the institutional and political future in order focusing on the role of the metropolitan cities in European governance. Close to the international events, we foresee to organize local activities in order to involve local actors like young people, civil society, policymakers, or public officials, in order to discuss about the topics of the project with the aim of increasing the civic participation in the political decision concerning the urban and metropolitan areas. which could be the result that we expect to gain after the implementation of all the activities. We would like to educate, we would like to increase the awareness of citizens and the policymakers in order to involve them in the democratic life of the European Union. We would like to make citizens more interested in public decision processes, and their participation is essential for the definition of an efficient and shared policy. We would like also to make citizens aware of own identity values, as well to open an intercultural dialogue and reciprocal knowledge in order to realize a common European identity and a shared citizenship between citizens. We would like also to educate the future generation on how to be a citizen that is very active and awareness of the European funds. All this activity could be only joined from the international events and local activities. It's very close to the international events and local activities. It's very important to have a network that is a long-lasting instrument for the comparison and cooperation on the topic addressed by partners, both among project partners and existing network, but also among citizens of the participant cities. So I thank you very much for the attention, and I will be here to answer if you will have any other question. Thank you. And now I would like also to give the floor to Marco Boaria, that is the General Director and the CEO of ALDA Plus.
Thanks a lot. Good morning, everybody. First of all, thanks also to the Metropolitan City of Milan for kindly organization invitation for this meeting within the project Camelot. I'm Marco Boria. I'm Director of Program and Development Department at ALDA, which is the European Association for Local Democracy, a European NGO based in Strasbourg, which fosters good governance at the local level through promoting citizens' participation and multi-stakeholder cooperation. We mainly work to promote good governance in different fields worldwide, but mainly focus in the EU, in the neighborhoods, in order to promote shared solutions to live better in communities. So we are partner of many of you since quite a few years, and especially with the Metropolitan City of Milan, with whom we have cooperated in different projects in the last few years. I have a big challenge today. I will introduce the new multi-annual financial framework. As you know, we have just entered a new important period concerning European funds, which are actually the major instruments also to promote good governance in the coming times, but also at the present times. So we have just entered the period of 2021-2027, and I will give you an overview of what are the main path, pillars, and priorities. Then Carmine Pacente will follow and will focus more on the resilience facility, with also sharing the experience of Milan. So as you know, the budget of the EU lasts for 7 years, because we need to refresh every now and then the political priorities. So we have now in front of us 7 years, actually 6, of new political priorities, which actually there are several news concerning the new multi-annual financial framework. Europe wishes to insist now on growth, innovation, on sustainability and social cohesion, migration security, among others priorities at the European level. The idea behind the budget is an instrument. The idea behind it is to build and to put resources for making Europe stronger and to be able to provide the so-called European added value to the initiatives of member states and not only, in order to boost growth and innovation at the European level. So it's an investment plan where the EU, with the resources allocated, wish to provide an added value. And actually the new frame is related to the Sustainable Development Goal Plan, the goals developed by the United Nations, the 17 objectives, on which also the new multi-annual financial framework is based. Actually, you won't see any program which does not mention the contribution of this program to one or more sustainable development goal. With the new approach, so-called localization of the SDGs, because we need to be aware that we need to contribute to the fulfillment of these objectives, also working at the local level, wherever we are, and also in global terms, how Europe can contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goal, or so-called also Agenda 2030. To do that, Europe has drafted an ambitious budget, as you know, also in order to respond to the COVID crisis. We have the biggest budget ever. You see in this slide the overall architecture of the funding provided by the EU in these times, which, let's say, merge the so-called multi-annual financial plan, which is actually the ordinary budget of the, which would have existed also without COVID. But there are two other elements, categories, one called the safety nets already in place since June last year as one of the first measures to promote growth and recovery after a COVID crisis, and the famous Next Generation EU. So these 750 billion euros as additional resources to boost innovation and growth due to COVID crisis. So we have more or less 2,364 billion euros available for the current multi-annual financial framework. Just to give you an idea, in the previous programming period, we could count on around 970 billion euros. So more or less 2.5 times more resources available in this overall architecture of the European funds for the next 7 years. There are some new features. I just highlighted a couple of them. Also, the EU, and not only us, learned from the experience. So one of the major features of the new budget is also the flexibility. When COVID started, EU realized that there are some flexibility mechanisms which were needed to better manage the funds. So now they introduced flexibility mechanism in the new budget. And there is also a so-called rule of law principle, which actually gives the rights to the EU to block some funds when countries do not share fully values and principles at the EU level. You also see in the news these days this kind of news concerning the behavior on certain sectors of some European member states. The Next Generation EU is this additional envelope to boost growth and innovation, which is actually temporary, because it is an instrument to recover from the crisis, and we all hope that the crisis will be over soon. So differently from the multi-annual financial framework, which lasts till 2027, the Next Generation EU will last until 2024. It seems that there is still a lot of time, but we were sharing also with Carmine before, we have 3 years ahead, which is not a huge period, especially for the kind of project that the Next Generation EU wish to support and wish to invest on. So what are these kind of programs within the Next Generation EU? There are several programs, but the biggest part is called the Recovery and Resilience Facility, which Carmine will focus on later on, which is actually the support to mitigate the social economic disruptive effect of the COVID in member states, which actually has a budget of 672 billion euros out of 750. So this is the biggest part of the Next Generation EU, called the Recovery and Resilience Facility. But there are also other parts of this Next Generation EU which aims at further fostering European priorities and programs, such, for example, REACT-EU, Horizon Europe, which is the biggest program ever on research and innovation. So there are 5 billion additional billions to support research programs. InvestEU, which is the heir of the Juncker plan. Then there are some additional resources also from some key policies that were cut, let's say, in the multi-annual financial framework and given as additional resources in the framework of the Next Generation EU. For example, to the rural development, to the Just Transition Fund, so-called Green Deal for sustainability, and also to RescEU, which is the program related to the protection against disasters and emergency management. As you can see from this infographic, you can see how these 750 billion are split. You see the biggest part to the Resilience and Recovery Facility and other components of the full envelope matching other priorities. So the Resilience and Recovery Facility, which we are all experts of, since we have been reading all the news in the last month concerning all in our countries, concerning the different national plans, which are now in office and operational, which were drafted by the member states according to specific guidelines of the Commission, which has actually clear priorities. And these are, for example, the keywords for the guidelines that the Commission gave to the member states to draft their national plans. So the priorities are power up, so promoting clean technology, acceleration of development and use of renewable energy, renovate, energy efficiency of public and private buildings, recharging the fuel and refuel, or what has to do with smart transport, accessibility, and so on. Connect, so whatever has to do with the broadband services, fiber, 5G networks. Modernize, there is also a priority to modernize, especially public administration, not only related to local authorities, but also the justice and the health systems. Scale up, related to the industrial data cloud capacity. And the last one, which is last but not least, because it's important if we are going digital, more and more digital, it's also important to train and to adapt our education system to the new digital world, addressing all the possible target groups. In a nutshell, this is how the budget is structured. So there are 7 headings with more or less 40 spending programs, macro program. There is a tendency of the European Union to create bigger programs. We reduce more or less of with programs and sub-programs in the previous programming period. We had more or less more than 400 programs. Now there are 250. Not because we have less money, as you see, but because there are bigger and more integrated programs. So there is this tendency going on. So there are these 7 macro categories of the budget which compose the overall architecture of the funds that I explained to you before. This is an interesting infographic because for the first time, as you probably know, the biggest funds in the past were allocated to 2 major policies at the European level. On one side, the common agricultural policy, on the other side, on the social cohesion policy. Nowadays, they are more or less balanced, as you can see, but for the first time, the new reinforced priority, so namely the digitalization and the Green Deal, has a higher impact on the EU budget compared to the common agricultural policy and the social cohesion policy. So if we sum up all the funds allocated to the digital transition, the ecological transition, which are the 2 main directions at the basis of the whole multi-annual financial framework, they overcome the budget allocated to the more traditional policies of the EU. Now, very quickly, I'm going to conclude. Besides, in addition to the national and regional funds, of course, you are all aware that there are several important direct funds managed directly by the EU, as it is the Euro for Citizens program supporting Camelot Project, where also local authorities can participate and get resources for promoting community development, with the specificity that as all these projects should have both a local and a transnational impact. So working together as we are doing here, but also promoting and strengthening local path. So very quickly, what could be the opportunities on a few programs also for many of you sitting in the room? For Horizon Europe is the new research program, the biggest program ever in terms of funds. We are talking about 95 billion euros, but it's not anymore only addressing universities and research center. Since 2014, with the Horizon 2020, there is the, let's say, I would say the obligation to cooperate between research centers and universities and practitioners. It's important that there are communities, organizations, NGOs taking the outcomes to the research, and they apply, they test, they validate at the local level all the outcomes to the research in all the different sectors, so from local economic development, migration, environment. So it's important also to see the role of the so-called practitioner in research program much more than in the past. The program Erasmus, which is actually, I think, the most famous one, this has also doubled the budget compared to the previous programming period. We are talking about 26 billion euros compared to the 13 in the previous programming period. And you know, it tackles 4 major topics, which is education, training, youth, and sport. So it also provides additional boost and resources also to all the stakeholders working at the community level in these 4 sectors. Another important program, which is actually the little brother, but it's already bigger, older than the Euro for Citizens. So the Euro for Citizens program doesn't exist anymore. So if we want to apply for a follow-up of Camelot, as I think we should do, I'm already launching the follow-up in this one of the first meeting, we should use the SERVE program, because now the network of towns, for example, is included in this new program, which is called Citizenship, Equality, Rights and Values, which actually merges 2 previous programs, Euro for Citizens, focusing on active citizenship, and the program REC, managed previously by the DG Justice, Rights, Equalities and Citizenship. So actually the 2 programs tackling the citizenship issue are now merged in one single program called SERVE, which has 4 strands: European values, citizens' participation, also the town twinning are still here, fundamental rights, and also DAPHNE, or the program related to the fighting against violence, especially against women and children. Another important program is Creative Europe, which has also increased the budget. And of course, we all know that public authorities at the local level has competencies on culture. So we can approach also the Creative Europe where, talking about digitalization, the strong priority is on media rather than classical culture. 60% of the funds of Creative Europe are allocated to cultural projects using new digital tools transversally. So it's important to highlight also this, that the 2 major priorities, that digital and green, which are the key words of the multi-annual financial framework, are not only related to stricto sensu to the programs related to digital or to environment, but should be understood as transversal principles to be applied in all the projects that we are going to develop in the coming years. So we can make culture through digital tools or using green approaches to promote culture. LIFE is another important program which has more resources than the past, and it's also partially structural. So you can work on some structural initiative using the LIFE program, which is actually the key programs dealing with the environment. Mitigation of climate change, fighting climate change, environmental governance, different topics are embedded in this environmental program. Interreg, which seems at the beginning of the negotiation that they should have a quite strong cut in the budget, has been, let's say, refilled by the Next Generation EU, which provided more resources to the social cohesion, where the Interreg programs are included. So there are still the three categories: the bilateral or cross-border programs, the transnational programs, and Interreg Europe, which the first two. The first has the border as a linking element, the cross-border. The transnational programs have the, let's say, an homogeneous area, I don't know, for example, Alpine space, for example, Mediterranean, while Interreg Europe is focused on the exchange of best practices, is still there. And actually we are experiencing the first call for those who are eligible in Central Europe. Central Europe Interreg program will launch the first call on the 15th of November. Milan is eligible, for example, and also Alpine Space is going to be launched the first call in a few months. And these are very important and relevant programs to support both structural and soft activities. So the challenge is over very quickly. Of course, I'm available to provide you more information also informally during the break. So thanks for your attention, and I hope to be able to cooperate with all of you in this framework in the future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much to Marco for this interesting illustration of the next, of all the programs that we can apply in the next years. Do you have questions before going to the coffee break? No questions? No doubts? No? Okay, we thank you very much, and let's have a break for 1/2 hour.
resilience or recovery resilience facility plan, national recovery facility plan here in Italy. We have three different pillars, two European funds, REACT-EU and the Recovery and Resilience Facility, and one national pillar, that is the National Complementary Fund. The total amount is more or less 230 billion euro for our country. So as you know, Italy is the best and the most important beneficiary all around the European Union. In Italy, REACT-EU, second slide, is about green and cohesion project. The total budget at EU level of the first pillar, REACT-EU, is, as Marco Boaria said, 47.5 billion euro. In Italy, only in Italy, 13.5 billion euro. This was the first negotiation between the national government and the European Commission, but there is a news because some colleagues from the European Commission from Brussels told me last week that there will be an increasing of resources for Italy. So the total amount will be 14.4 billion euro for our country. It's incredible, 30%, 35% more or less. But what is the timetable of this project? All the project of REACT-EU must be completed at the end of 2023. In Italy, doesn't mean tomorrow, in Italy means yesterday. So we have 2 years for investing all these European financial sources in our country. But what about metropolitan cities and what about Milan? Because I think that a lot of people are really interested in these two questions. Third slide. In Italy, as I said, 13.5 and now 14.4 billion euro of REACT. For metropolitan cities, for the 14 metropolitan cities, 1 billion euro of financial sources. The timetable, as I said, all the project completed before the end of 2023, but there is a big challenge, my dear friend, Sindaco, Mayor of Liscate, that is the relation between the capital of the metropolitan area and the metropolitan city. Because all the projects in Italy are submitted by the capital of the metropolitan area. And in fact, as I show you, what about Milan? The budget of Milan is 82 million euro of European funds, and 11 projects were submitted by the capital of the metropolitan city. In my commission, because I'm president of the Commission for European Funds in the capital city of metropolitan area of Milan, I managed this instrument in the last 2 years, more or less, and these are the projects submitted. Photovoltaic system, urban intelligence for living, the pavement intervention, urban regeneration of public buildings. If you have any questions, I'm here for answering. So, for Milan, an important financial sources for the investments in the next 24 months. 24 months. This is the timetable. The Recovery and Resilience Facility for Italy is 191.5 billion euro, a lot. And as you know, there are 6 missions. I told the first is digitalization, as you know. The second is green revolution and ecological transition. Third, the facility for sustainable mobility, education and research, inclusion and cohesion, and health. But you know the title because all know the title. Nobody knows this reality that is different. The challenges. I think that the most important challenges are, of course, the reforms. For example, the bureaucracy and the reform of the public administration. Yesterday, during my department in Anci, we talked about this important topic. And the justice, because for the investments of this amount of European funds, we need to reform, a strong reform of bureaucracy, PI and justice. Of course, the investments, the second pillar. And third, investment depends on given deadlines, the milestones. If you are interested in it, I can give some information about this topic. But third, the governance of EU funds. It's really important for territories, the relations between the central state and the regions, the relations between the central states and the municipalities, the relations between the central states, region and metropolitan areas. First challenge, reforms, just for giving an overview. We have three categories of reforms: horizontal, enabling, and sectoral. It's written in the Italian PNRR, of course, the Recovery and Resilience Facility Plan. Horizontal reforms, the most important are justice and public administration. You can consider that for this kind of instruments, Recovery and Resilience Facility Plan, we will have the financial sources every 6 months, only if we do the reforms, only if we do the investments, and if we do all the investments in our territories. Second category, enabling reforms, simplification of the system and competition, of course. And third kind of reform, sectoral reform, salary, revenue, social safety nets. I wrote some examples, but there are a lot of reforms in this category. Second challenge, the timetable. I talked about REACT briefly, the end of 2023. For the Recovery and Resilience Facility, all the project until the end, before the end of 2026, and all the project committed before the end of 2023. This is the timetable that the European institution gave us. And I completely agree with the European institutions, of course. Because if you want all this amount of sources, you do some reforms, some investments, because Italy, as you know, is the first partner of the European Union for the total amount of European funds. Not only of the Recovery and Resilience Facility Plan, but also for the structural funds after Poland, but we talk another time. Third challenge, this is really important for local bodies, metropolitan cities, municipalities. Which role for cities and which role for metropolitan cities? So I show you some proposals of ANCI, that is the National Association of Italian Municipalities, formally submitted to the Italian government the last month of July. The president of the association or his delegate in the Recovery and Resilience Facility Plan control room, because the central government didn't give the possibility to the president of ANCI to sit. The president of ANCI, that is Antonio De Caro, the mayor of Francesca. Francesca is a delegate of the metropolitan city of Bari. Second, the governance management models on the examples of the NOPS Metro. NOPS means National Operational Programs, Metropolitan Cities, or the Metropolitan Cities Deal. I think that you know. And third, direct allocations of some funds, because the governance depends on these. Call for proposal, direct allocation, a mix. Which is the question? Which is the answer to these questions? For example, in the mission number 2, the ecological transition, you know, I wrote some examples, the urban and metropolitan city paths are written in the Italian PNRR, or the urban and metropolitan mass transport, or the renewal on buses, metros, energy efficiency of public buildings, on the urban and suburban green spaces. For the Italian colleagues, from the metropolitan area of Milan, you know the project Forestami that is involved in this category of the mission number 2, for examples. And if I go to Porto next week, because we will have a meeting with the European Commissioner Ferreira, with our colleagues of Barcelona, if I go to Porto next week, I will show this project to the Commissioner Ferreira, the Commissioner of Cohesion Policy and Reforms. Mission number 5, another example, it's really important for us, for territories I mean. Integration of the financial sources of a recovery and resilience facility plan with the NOPs and ROPs. They are not a group, a concert group, but the national operational programs and regional operational programs, of course. Sport and culture as vehicle for social inclusion and urban regeneration, as I said with some colleagues during the coffee breaks. And in the metropolitan area is particularly evident this aspect. And the protagonism of municipalities in the metropolitan area, such as, for example, Milan, or Bari in the case of Francesca, or Florence, or Venice, or Naples. But until we don't have answers to this question, which is the governance of EU funds, with the exception of REACT-EU, because about REACT-EU we know all the aspects. It's difficult to write articles on newspapers. I remember that when I was in the City Council of Milan and we debate 1 year ago more or less about the PNRR, I was the relator, and I told, I think it's not correct to write on the newspapers, I would like to have 20 billion euro for Rome, 10 for Milan, 11 for Florence, because it's we must have this information from the central government, and later we can give information to the media or to the newspapers, because this is a serious approach and not the contrary. So thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'm here for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carmine Facente, for having shown us which are the most important challenges and mission that Italy has to face in the next years. Now we would like to make a round table with our partners from Camelot Project in order to understand which are the involvement of their country in the recovery and resilience plan. So I would like to invite Stuttgart City, that is represented by Mr. Oesterle. Sorry for the wrong pronunciation. So please come here. Thank you.
So yeah, hello everyone. I'm Frieder Oesterle, as Tatjana pronounced perfectly, from Stuttgart region in Germany. I just want to give you a short impression of Stuttgart region. It's, I think, similar to Città metropolitanas in Italy, because we are a metropolitan area of about 179 towns and municipalities with about 2.8 million inhabitants. And our GDP, for example, is close to 150 billion euros. I think you may know Stuttgart as a hub for the automobile industry. Mercedes, or also Porsche, is located there, and various suppliers. So the key tasks of our metropolitan area, of our organization that manages the metropolitan area, is basically regional planning, also regional public transport and transport management, and also economic development. So, and this year we celebrated the 20th birthday, so to say, of our European strategy and our coordinated European work, which is based on 4 pillars. It's basically European networking and lobbying, as we also do within the Camelot Project, and also location marketing, so promoting Stuttgart as a location, and of course EU funding and EU projects, which is a huge task, and also giving information about the EU within the Stuttgart region. The recovery and resilience plan for Germany. It is about 25 billion euros, so also a lot of money, not as much as, for example, Italy gets, but still we can't complain. But we can complain about our involvement in the plan, actually, somehow, because Stuttgart region, we were not at all, you can say, involved in the consultation process, even though the Commission actually states it should be a multi-level approach in writing and creating those plans. Also our German so-called Bundesländer, so the states, as for example Lombardia in Italy, they were not really involved by the central government within this process of writing the plan. So it was really a centralized process by the central government who submitted the plan to the European Commission. So the plan has several or 6 thematic priorities, which is climate protection, energy transition, also the digital transition once in the economy and also in the educational system, the strengthening of social participation, and of course also strengthening of the health system and a modern public administration. So we as, for example, metropolitan areas, we do not receive funds directly within that plan. We could apply for some funding programs that are managed by the plan. But for example, some companies of ours or research institutes, etc., they may apply for the programs mentioned in the plan, but not us as a metropolitan area directly. So, besides the recovery and resilience plan, we also were involved in, somehow shaping the EU funding period, which we have now. We did this especially via our networks. We are part of several European networks, for example, METREX, which is a network of European metropolitan areas and regions across Europe, where our regional director, Dr. Nicola Schelling, she was the president of METREX for 7 years. So we conducted several events that promoted the role of metropolitan areas in Europe and that they should receive funding from the EU because, as I think also Marco showed earlier, Europe focused often on the rural areas, and we always try to give the urban dimension a greater role within EU funding. So we also wrote several position papers and also took part in consultations and of course also bilateral meetings and discussions. We were also greatly involved in the strategic documents of the EU urban agenda that you also may have heard of, and the new Leipzig Charter and the territorial agenda for the European Union, which were published last year during the German EU Council presidency. Last but not least, I wanted to show you some small examples of projects which are funded by EU funds and which we deploy in our metropolitan area. For example, quite recently we were selected as a so-called model region for green hydrogen, where we will receive more than 10 million euros to really focus on green hydrogen, so the transition of the transportation system. Also, we have this, we always call it ITI light, so those integrated territorial investments which are in place, but in our state in Baden-Württemberg it's not does not fulfill all the criteria that the EU actually wants, so we call them ITI light. So for example, the regional mobility hubs, the picture on the right that you can see, they are funded by this, which combine different options of sustainable transport within one mobility hub. And also quite recently we received funds for a so-called lab for the future of buildings, which will deal with sustainable resources in building buildings, basically. So these are just some very small examples from Stuttgart region. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Stuttgart. Now is the turn of Barcelona, and I am going to give the floor to Javier Tiana Casablancas and also to Alba Collado. Thank you very much.
Buongiorno a tutti, grazie agli amici della città metropolitana di Milano per ospitarmi. È una città che noi apprezziamo tanti, Grazie per essere qua. Bene, il mio italiano è malissimo, allora parlo in inglese, che magari è peggio, ma gli altri possono capire. So, just to give you a brief snapshot on what the metropolitan area of Barcelona is, we are the only metropolitan area existing in Spain. It's not the case like in Italy. We have our own legislation and more than 40 years of supralocal cooperation. We gather a territory of 636 square kilometers, 36 municipalities around Barcelona, 3.2 million inhabitants, and we have very specific powers in urban planning and public space, mobility and transport, waste and water management, housing, and economic and social development. These are the main powers we have. In terms of European funding, we are involved in more than 60 European projects, and we manage a special program which comes from an agreement with the region of 30 million euro of ERDF, so which amounts to an investment of 72 million euro for metropolitan projects. When going to the question of the National Recovery Plan, and as my colleagues from Stuttgart and Carmine said, we are more or less in the same situation like in Italy. The Spanish government started to produce this National Recovery Plan. We didn't have neither information, neither on the programs nor about the calls for proposals. There were many expectations on the ground. Everybody was thinking that money was coming from heaven for everything. And now we are in the reality, and the reality is absolutely different. The Spanish government started in this process before submitting the plan. They launched some expressions of interest. They were asking to the ground or to the stakeholders, what kind of project would you like to submit? But I mean, this is not a participation process. So for us, participation is sitting on a table according to the powers we have. For instance, in Barcelona, we manage transport in Barcelona. We manage all the sustainable mobility. So we didn't have the space for dialogue with the Spanish government. Our national recovery plan amounts more or less 70 billion euro of granting. And related to REACT, as Carmine was saying, in the case of Catalonia, Catalonia has received 1 billion euro of REACT EU program, which doubles the current operational program for the ERDF. All this funding will remain in the pockets, if I may say this word, of the region. No space, neither for cities, nor for metropolitan areas, provincial governments, so everything remains in the pockets of the region. Linked to well, this is more or less what I was saying. As Metropolitan Area of Barcelona, we started the process to define some projects. I mean, we didn't have the information. We had to go through this process. And we were working with our services, so we identified more or less projects which amounts 2 billion euro. I mean, everybody was, again, crazy to manage this funding. 2 billion euro, which part of them would be co-financed by private sector, and another part for public sector. Budget of the metropolitan area, also budget from the municipality. So we were consulting municipalities, our 36 municipalities, in the definition of these projects. Up to now, and this is something which we are very worried about that, and it's also linked to what Carmine was saying with the case of Italy. We are very worried with the execution process of this funding, because the requirements are heavy. This is not managing like a local or national grant. Requirements are heavy. As I was saying, we manage an envelope of 30 million euro of the ERDF. We were happy when we got that. But the execution is very heavy. We are having more than 4 and 5 levels of control. Every time we have a control, we got a reduction of 10%, 20%, 25% of the money that we have spent. So take into consideration, if you belong to a municipality, whether if it's small, medium-sized, that you will need an important support from that. Whether technical support, also for your internal structures, those people dealing with procurement, those people dealing with control, those people dealing with legal affairs. The Spanish government right now has launched 2 decrees of the national government saying how we will have to execute this funding. We will have to submit, I mean, when we got the resources from the recovery fund, we will have to submit reports every month, every 3 months, and every 6 months. Financial reports, reports on the indicators, reports on the procurement. So our organization, and we are going to be prepared for that, needs a specific team to manage this funding. Otherwise, we will die. Up to now, we have submitted 2 projects to different calls launched by the national government. One is dealing in tourism. We have submitted a project dealing with greening and digitalization of the metropolitan rivers and sustainable tourism in beaches, a project which amounts around 30 million euro. And we have also submitted a project dealing with the low emission zone in Barcelona. Barcelona has a huge problem with air quality. I think this is something which is quite similar here in Italy and other European capitals. We have a low emission zone of 95 kilometers, and we have submitted a project which is investing in these low emission zones with special measures and special investments. This project amounts 60 million euro. 41 of them would come from the Recovery and Resilience Fund. Another problem that we are having right now is that some calls for proposals that the Spanish government is launching are only direct to cities. So a figure like the metropolitan area, and we are managing an annual budget of 2 billion euro, we have no space on that. For instance, in green infrastructure, in nature-based solutions, where we are investing 100 million euro every 4 years. So a metropolitan area is not considered to be eligible in some of the calls for proposals. So this is why we need to lobby our national government to have a role there, and I would recommend you, whether it's in Italy or not, or in other places, to still lobbying in that. But it's very important also to press the European institutions. They say that national recovery plans, participation, evaluation, execution, is something that belongs to every national country. But it's not true. I mean, we need to ask, we need to lobby, we need to request that the European Union, because at the end of the day, this is European funding, that the European Union is paying attention on the way that every national government is implementing this funding. And this is why that since 2015, with some of the metropolitan areas that are here, like Zagabria, Stuttgart, Milano, Porto, which is not here, and others, we are leading a lobby of European metropolitan areas, which is called European Metropolitan Authorities, that my colleague Alba will share with you what we've done up to now to try to influence the European Union with this issue. Alba, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Xavi. Yeah, well, hi. Nice to be here. Well, as Xavi was saying, to get to know what was the experience and the reality of the other metropolitan areas in Europe within the European Metropolitan Authorities Network. That's from those of you that don't know about this network. It's a network of more than 40 European metropolitan areas in Europe. It's a political network where we gather all these politicians, and it represents more than 75 inhabitants in Europe. So what is the main goal of this network? The main goal, after all, is a space to discuss metropolitan challenges in the European metropolises, and also to define the basis of collaboration. So what this joint work it's reflected? So the first thing is that we organize an annual forum that, as Carmine Pacente was saying, this year is going to be held in Porto, which is next week, 11th and 12th of November. This is the main activity that we are doing every year, but also we are doing several meetings. We are preparing joint projects and papers and position papers and different studies. Thank you. What else? So regarding the meetings, last year, as you can see here, in October, we organized a meeting with more than 25 metropolitan areas. It was an online meeting with politicians from these areas. So we wanted to gather all these politicians so they were able to talk about what has been the priorities and the role of their metropolitan area in the process of preparation of their national plans in their country. And so the result of this meeting was the elaboration of a position paper that we sent with all the experiences gathered, of course, during the meeting, that we sent to the European institutions and also to the Commission, and especially to the Commissioner Elisa Ferreira, that she also replied us about this position paper. And also this summer we organized a second political meeting that had also relation to the first one, to see the experiences that happened with the national plans, and also to start gathering some examples about projects and ideas and actions that each metropolitan area wanted to deal with all the money that they would or not receive. And the main outcome of this second meeting is it's something that we're working in right now. It's like a catalog of, we are thinking about 20 to 25 projects with a metropolitan scale that we are, as I was saying, preparing right now. And the idea is to give in person to Commissioner Ferreira in the meeting in Porto a first version of it, so they can see that the importance of the metropolitan scale in this project regarding to these funds. And the second version of the paper will be delivered and sent with all the projects I guess in December, by the end of this year, to send also to the European institutions and again to Commissioner Ferreira. So I think this is all. Thank you very much, and I'll give the floor to the next metropolitan area.
So thank you very much for this insightful experience about the metropolitan area of Barcelona. Thank you very much. And now let's go to another part of Europe. We go to East, and it's the turn of Croatia. And I give the floor to Mr. Kresimir Radic.
Hello, so my name is Kresimir Radic. I come from the city of Zagreb, and I will be telling you now a bit about the Croatian National and Resilience Plan and the way it was passed and framed and the way it was made. Okay. So now I'll just have to go through this a bit boring slide, but it's important for you to understand everything I will be talking about later. So. The way we have the subnational authority, similar to the rest of Europe, is divided into a local level and the regional level. So you have municipalities and cities at the local level, which is basically the same. They're just cities are urban environment and municipalities are villages. And counties at the regional level. Now, my city, which is the capital, and by far the largest city in Croatia, it is serves as both a unit of a local and a regional government. And that's the reason why it has completely different requirements and different authorities, jurisdictions, and everything than the rest of the counties and cities in Croatia. And now we also have this special entities. They're called Regional Development Coordinator, whose function basically stops at planning regional development. And now, this is the chronology of how our recovery and resilience plan and the other programs were made. So at first, the city was asked to identify some investments and projects with high level of readiness that could be implemented in early 2021. That was the first step. It was still in 2020. Then in August, that was in August. And in October, there were several bilateral meetings between the ministry and these regional development coordinators. So now the thing was, all of these meetings were done individually. So each of the 21 regional coordinators sat with the ministry, and they proposed their investments and did some talks in the end. So the Zagreb was had to prioritize its 20 projects, which is the same as any other county. Now, if we think that Zagreb has 800,000 people, which is, I think, the same as Palermo in Italy, and the second largest city has only 200,000, now you see the disproportion between it. So we have, in our urban environment in Zagreb and its urban agglomeration, there is more than a quarter of inhabitants of my country. And we were given the same opportunity as everyone else. Now, later on, then in November, the government passed the ruling on the operational programs, which were then sent to the European Commission for evaluation. That was done in 2021, and now we are, right now in October and in November, we are still having some work group meetings that are organized, and the Commission's remarks are assessed. So, these are the key issues that we were faced. So Zagreb, there is also one thing about Croatia in 2020. We were disproportionately, it was disproportionately catastrophic than the rest of the Europe, because our country was hit by several earthquakes, which destroyed 4 or 5 counties and leveled 3 cities with the ground. Zagreb was one of them. There's also a number of public institutions and companies that is bigger than in any other county in Croatia. There's also terms of population, as I said before, different authorities on local level, on regional level. There's also the biggest university, and so on and so on. So as the largest metropolitan area, Zagreb has quite a specific system that was treated the same as all the others. Much smaller cities, cities that were 10 or maybe more times smaller than Zagreb. So specific requirements were not taken into account, not sufficiently anyway. There's also issues of representation, which is quite similar to what other partners were speaking about. So you see regional development coordinators, they're public institutions, they're not even NGOs, they're nothing. They're just entities who make right strategies for regional development. And this is where their authority stops. So they were invited to participate. But counties and cities were not. So you had, in all the work groups, you had just 3 representatives of counties and only 1 representative of cities and municipalities. And they were there because only the Union of Counties and Union of Cities was invited. So the individual counties and individual cities, they were not invited because the ministry thought that the regional development coordinator will represent them sufficiently. So what we basically had was that the regional development coordinators were talking about their own cities, about them, without them. So, and it was especially a big problem for Zagreb because our metropolitan area consists of the city of Zagreb, the largest one, and 30 cities that surround it. So it's, as I said, it's a quarter of a country. But any suggestions to include more representatives were turned down. But in the end, it turned out quite well because these, as I mentioned, these 3 representatives of counties and 1 representative of cities and municipalities, they showed quite an incentive to represent actually their counties and municipalities, so everything turned out well. I mean, the ideas were represented sufficiently, although the method was, in my opinion, not completely democratic and right. Okay, so the Croatian RRP, this is the overview. Its total is 6.4 billion in grants and 3.6 billion in loans, so it's a lot of money. We have, there's 5 components and 1 initiative. The components, as I have seen, are basically the same, more or less, as in the rest of the Europeans. We just have this number 6, this initiative for renovating buildings. This is really important, and this is, I think, around, just let me check the numbers. This initiative is takes upon, I think, more than 10% of this total money that is given, because it's imagined to directly mitigate the consequences of our earthquakes that we had. Because the Solidarity Fund is not enough. Solidarity Fund has given us a lot of money to renovate everything, but it's just the beginning. This is really the first phase so that the buildings can and cities can start functioning. But it's not the complete renovation as it is supposed to be. It's not revitalizing anything. So this is the sixth initiative is supposed to do exactly that. This is the impact of what this is about to supposed to show the impact the RRP will have on Croatian GDP. It's supposed to have a positive contribution by 1.1% in the next 20 years. And these are our programs that we have. 3 operational programs that are, as I said, they're still not finished. They're still being assessed by the Commission. These, the competitiveness and cohesion are just for economic competitiveness in the transport infrastructure, network infrastructure, and so on. Efficient human resources is about social cohesion. And the integrated territorial program, that's something new. I think it was made, from what I see, it was made is being inspired heavily by integrated territorial investment. So what actually this program means is it was described by a colleague of mine who has much more experience than this. It's like you have a brownfield here, a brownfield there, and a bicycle track connecting them. So I suppose it's something like this to integrate territory and contribute to territorial cohesion. So to conclude, what do I say? There has been less than adequate inclusion of local and regional levels into programming, which has been kind of mitigated by Croatian Union of Counties and Union of Municipalities and their representatives. There was no clear and immediate communication between entities on different levels of government. And also the cities that have accumulated experience during the last period were not actually asked to contribute with that experience to the programming process. Yeah, so, well, that's it from me, and thank you for your attention.
So thank you very much also to Zagreb for this for the illustration of this interesting representation about their city. Now it's turn of Romania, and I am going to take the floor to Roxana Părșoi, that is from Craiova.
Hello, my name is Roxana Părșoi. I represent the local council of Craiova municipality. And I would like, first of all, to introduce a bit Craiova. Craiova municipality is situated in the south of Romania. It's the 6th largest city in Romania and the capital of Dolj County and Oltenia region. It is located at a distance of 227 kilometers far from Bucharest, the capital of Romania, and 68 kilometers from Danube River. It has a population of almost 300 inhabitants, and the municipality is a mixture of new and old history, culture, economic, agriculture, getting an outstanding personality, especially in the last years after the revolution, when the modernization could be seen in all the fields. Craiova municipality is part of Craiova Metropolitan Area. All the metropolitan projects can be found in the strategic documents. Yes. So the European Commission adopted a positive assessment of Romania's recovery and resilience plan, under which the country will receive 14.2 million in grants and 14.9 billion in loans under the European Union's Recovery and Resilience Facility. The Romanian plan includes measures on 15 components, all based on the 6 pillars. So water management, forests and biodiversity, waste management, sustainable transport, energy education, healthcare, building renovation, tourism and culture, digital transformation, social and territorial cohesion, support measures for the private sector, research and innovation, the green transition or smart growth. Projects in the plan cover the entire time until 2026. So our financial allocation is 29.2 billion euro. The Ministry of European Investment and Projects started in January an extensive process of interministerial technical meetings and consultations and public consultations to update the National Recovery and Resilience Plan in order to bring it into line with the regulation of recovery and resilience mechanism. The process, coordinated by the ministry, started at the end of January, immediately after the approval by the Romanian government of the memorandum mechanism for elaborating the Romanian government's position on the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. The ministry also made available to ministries, situations, organizations and individuals concerned a reform and investment sheet, through which they could send proposal for updating the National Reform and Resilience Plan in a standardized and simplified form. So, Craiova municipality submitted some project fish on urban regeneration in some districts of Craiova by arranging intermodal points in Craiova, a railway station area, widening the street sections, reconfiguration of intersections, redevelopment of green spaces, arranging the sports bays in high school yards, gyms, buildings, and after school. Or arranging some urban mobility corridors in order to alleviate the traffic flow and to improve the road infrastructure and the local public transport by overpasses, tunnels, underground pedestrian crossing, intermodal hub, and intersections. Another fish was on waterway Craiova south the Jiu Danube. Jiu is an important river crossing Craiova. So it is good to be modernized for the transit and export. We also submitted some fish for the development of the health sector. And the health component for the Romania Recovery and Resilience Plan will consist of 3 reforms and 2 investments that address the main challenges in health sector. So one of the fish was to increase the diagnostic and treatment capacity of the clinical hospital for infectious diseases Victor Babeș in Craiova by expanding the related infrastructure, because in Romania region there is no research and diagnostic center in bronchology for lung diseases patients being referred to accurate diagnostics to hospitals in Timișoara and Bucharest. It is proposed to build and equip 2 buildings in order to develop this. And another fish was construction and related functions for Craiova Philanthropy Pediatric Hospital. The objectives of this project is to develop an integrated medical center to offer a wide range of medical services, quality and accessible to all patients. Construction of a new hospital building, creating a space centered around the patient, able to reduce the stress generated by the medical art. The hospital will have a total of 216 beds for the continuous hospitalization of patients, 28 beds in day hospitalization, and 20 beds for intensive care. For the next financial program, in order to achieve its 4 objectives, green and resilient city, competitive and productive city, just and inclusive city, well-governed city, the local government in Craiova, in consultation with the civil society, has developed a long list of projects to meet the needs and challenges identified in the analysis of the existing situation. This is all for me. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you very much, Roxana, for this interesting illustration about Craiova. Now, after the illustration of Milan's situation here in the north, we are going to the south, and I am going to take the floor, to give the floor to Francesca Pietroforte, that she is coming from the metropolitan city of Bari.
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti. Desidero innanzitutto salutare e ringraziare la città metropolitana di Milano per l'ospitalità, qui rappresentata dal collega e amico Carmine Pacente. Saluto Alda, tutti i partner del progetto Camelot e i rappresentanti istituzionali delle aree urbane europee qui presenti, coinvolte nel progetto. Dunque, la città metropolitana di Bari, che io rappresento in qualità di consigliera metropolitana, ha impostato lo sviluppo strategico del territorio di area vasta in una costante e continua azione di copianificazione e coprogettazione con i 41 comuni che la compongono. Per chi non la conoscesse, Bari è città capoluogo della regione Puglia, situata nel sud Italia, città che si affaccia sul mare Mediterraneo e che è composta da 300.000 abitanti. Sono però 1.200.000 gli abitanti della città metropolitana di Bari, composta da 41 comuni. E abbiamo chiesto ai sindaci e agli amministratori locali di mettere da parte il campanilismo e ragionare insieme come una grande comunità.
Thank you and good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to extend a very warm greeting to Metropolitan City of Milan for hosting this very crucial and important event. And also I would like to thank Mr. Carmine Pacente for all the organization he has done for this event, as well as I want to extend another warm welcome to Alda and all the participants of the Camelot Project, the representatives, the member states which are participating. And the Metropolitan City of Bari has decided to focus its development with a constant co-planning, co-development together with the 41 municipalities of the Bari region. For those of you who may not know what Bari is or where is it. It is in the southern part of Italy. It is the main city of the Apulia region, and it is just in front of the Mediterranean Sea, and it has a population of 300,000 inhabitants. Obviously, this is the city alone, because together with the other 41 municipalities, we have a total population of around 1.2 million inhabitants. And so for these projects, we have asked to participate and work together with all the mayors of the 41 cities around Bari.
Abbiamo quindi chiesto ai sindaci e agli amministratori locali dei 41 comuni che compongono la città metropolitana di mettere da parte il campanilismo e di ragionare insieme come una grande comunità. E in questo modo è stato possibile attuare interventi di politiche urbane e territoriali più integrate e una forma di governance più efficiente, realizzata mediante l'attuazione di un processo unitario di negoziazione di accordi con le amministrazioni periferiche per la realizzazione di interventi d'area sovracomunale. E così è nato il piano strategico della città metropolitana di Bari, che ha questo payoff creato insieme agli amministratori locali, che dà l'idea del futuro che espande i suoi confini.
So, as I said, we decided to speak to the 41 mayors and representatives of the cities around Bari, and we decided to work together to foster the work we can do together and build a greater sense of community. And we decided to do this to have a greater efficiency when it comes to governance and have better negotiation processes. For instance, we have decided not to focus only on Bari, on the cities of around Bari, but also on the suburban areas. And in this way, we have decided to go on with greater administrative efforts to, as I said, build a stronger community with all the areas around Bari.
Così nasce anche il logo del piano strategico, che abbiamo ritenuto importante perché la comunicazione è un aspetto chiave per la nostra città metropolitana, perché vogliamo favorire attraverso la comunicazione anche processi di coinvolgimento e di partecipazione della cittadinanza. E quindi il logo del piano strategico si compone di 11 elementi, uno per ognuno degli assi strategici, che formano la sigla Bari 2030, in un gioco di relazioni tra forme diverse che vuole evocare il senso più profondo della pianificazione strategica, come dicevo prima, il contributo virtuoso di tutte le comunità. E il logo è anche formato da 3 colori, che sono colori simbolo della nostra area urbana: il rosso, il verde e il blu. Il rosso come la terra rossa della Puglia, il verde come il nostro paesaggio rurale e il blu ovviamente come il mare Mediterraneo, che è un aspetto identitario della nostra area urbana, crocevia di culture e tradizioni diverse.
So an important element which has to be stressed out is the logo we have decided to establish for our projects. It is an important part of the strategic plans, and it is important because it has to deal with communication, which is crucial for the projects of the metropolitan city of Bari. We have decided to create this logo by thinking about the parts the citizens can actively play, the role they can play in these projects. As you can see, in the logo we have 11 elements, each element for one strategic axis. And all these elements make up the Bari 2030 logo. And it is extremely important and meaningful for us when it comes to this strategic planning, this element, because it is the result of the collaboration and actions undertaken by all the citizenships of the metropolitan area. On top of the 11 elements, we also have 3 colors, which are 3 symbolic, very important colors for the metropolitan city of Bari. We have the red, the green, and the blue. And these colors represent the earth around Bari and the metropolitan area, the color of the rural areas, which is the green, and the blue, which obviously is a reference to our maritime environment. And so these symbols and these colors all together, they really create a meeting point for all of our projects.
L'aspetto poi del coinvolgimento dei 41 comuni per noi è particolarmente importante perché non abbiamo voluto calare dall'alto il piano strategico, ma realizzarlo grazie ad un'azione di copianificazione e coprogettazione con gli amministratori locali che rappresentano il territorio, la cittadinanza metropolitana e quindi con i 41 sindaci.
So, as I said, 41 municipalities. These elements cannot be stressed enough for its importance. I want to say that we didn't have an up-bottom approach. We always carried out our plans by co-planning and co-defining projects with all the local authorities and therefore the representatives of the cities of the metropolitan area.
I tre assi strategici su cui vogliamo puntare per la ripresa e il rilancio attraverso il recovery plan sono le pari opportunità generazionali, ci stiamo rivolgendo soprattutto ai giovani, tanto che abbiamo creato il tavolo delle nuove generazioni, un tavolo di confronto costante per la redazione e per l'attuazione del piano strategico, l'economia integrale basata sul rispetto dell'ambiente e l'ecologia integrale, basata sul rispetto dell'ambiente e sulla sostenibilità, e il capitale culturale che valorizza lo straordinario patrimonio artistico, archeologico, culturale di cui dispone la città di Bari, ma l'intera regione Puglia.
As I said, three main strategic axes for these. I would like to define it a brand new start, thanks to the recovery plan projects. First of all, equal opportunities for the young generations, and actually we have decided to create a, so to speak, new youth roundtable aiming to develop plans for the youth. Secondly, we have projects for the integral economy, in which we try to focus on the respect and protection of environment and the suburban areas. And third, we have the cultural capital projects, which try to stress the importance of the heritage of Bari and obviously of the whole metropolitan area.
Questi sono gli 11 assi della pianificazione strategica. I simboli che vedete accanto a ciascun numero sono quelli poi rappresentati all'interno del logo. Il primo è l'agenda digitale metropolitana, le smart city, per poi passare alla mobilità sostenibile con il bici plan metropolitano, la terra di Bari Guestcard, che è una rete tra tutti gli attrattori naturali e culturali presenti nella nostra area vasta, porta futuro per i giovani, le giovani generazioni, la ricerca, il lavoro, l'innovazione sociale. L'Agenzia Metropolitana per l'housing sociale e l'inclusione attiva, il waterfront metropolitano, come dicevo prima, il mare è un elemento identitario molto forte della nostra città, le periferie aperte. Per ripartire dalle periferie ci siamo resi conto che sviluppare le periferie è un elemento importante e strategico per valorizzare anche i centri, quindi centri e periferie devono avere un costante dialogo. La rete dei centri storici, le nostre comunità hanno dei centri antichi che vanno recuperati e valorizzati. L'agricoltura 4.0, quindi il nostro paesaggio rurale, attraverso politiche che guardino anche all'innovazione, l'energia sostenibile e i cambiamenti climatici e infine l'industria 4.0 e il rilancio delle nostre aree industriali e degli hub logistici produttivi.
So, as I have said already, and as you have seen on the slides, we have 11 strategic axes, and each symbol is the one represented in our documents and plans. So first of all, we have the digital metropolitan agenda and smart cities. We also have the plan for the sustainable mobility. We have the Terra di Bari gas card, which is the gas card for the territory of Bari, another very important one. Then we have the future door for the youths, the Metropolitan Agency for Social Housing and Active Inclusion, and very important is also the sixth strategic axis, which is the waterfront, metropolitan waterfront and sea economy. And as I've said already with the blue color, this sea really is a symbol of identity for the metropolitan area of Paris, so we cannot ignore that. Then we have the seventh axis, which is about open suburbs. And open suburbs, we have seen that they are crucial. They play a crucial role because if we enhance the importance of the suburban area, we can also give more value to the downtowns and to the other city centers. Then to go on, we have axis number 8, which is about the requalification and renovation of historical hamlets and villages, very important one. Then we have agriculture 4.0. Number 10, we have sustainable energy and climate change projects. And finally, the 11th axis, which is industry number 4, which tries to kickstart the new projects in the Italian sports associations as a productive logistic hub.
Crediamo molto nella collaborazione con le pubbliche amministrazioni, quindi è necessario anche sviluppare la governance pubblica e per questo stiamo intervenendo su alcuni aspetti cruciali: la transizione digitale dell'amministrazione pubblica, la semplificazione amministrativa e la sinergia tra le istituzioni pubbliche, la cooperazione tra pubblico e privato, perché il pubblico non può più operare senza rivolgersi agli stakeholders, senza rivolgersi all'esterno e quindi senza sviluppare sinergie con soggetti privati, sinergie virtuose per lo sviluppo del territorio. E infine l'etica del lavoro e la trasparenza.
It is very important to cooperate with the public administrations and public authorities, and so this is why we want to stress and enhance that we need to cooperate with the public governance authorities. So we have 4 main elements on which we want to intervene. First of all, a digital transition of the public administrations. Secondly, an administrative simplification and creation of synergies between with the public institutions. Third, we want to improve the cooperation between the public and the private sector, because the public nowadays cannot work on its own anymore. We need to strengthen this collaboration between the public and private entities by creating new synergies. And fourth and last element, we want to stress the importance of better ethics in work and transparency.
E per concludere, queste sono le 3 sfide, le prime 3 proposte per il PNRR che abbiamo lanciato ai sindaci del territorio. 3 temi sui quali ragionare insieme e progettare insieme. Il primo è la riqualificazione dei borghi storici. Questo perché non vogliamo continuare a sfruttare il territorio, ma vogliamo recuperare quello che già c'è e quindi spingere i cittadini ad abitare i borghi, a tornare nella parte storica delle città attraverso lo sviluppo di nuovi modelli abitativi che siano però sostenibili e che possano valorizzare queste zone dei nostri comuni, basandosi anche su alcuni elementi che caratterizzano le città, come l'acqua e come le nostre tradizioni. Il secondo punto riguarda il recupero ambientale dei margini urbani. Anche qui l'idea è quella di non sfruttare ulteriormente il territorio, ma di recuperare le periferie, i margini, attraverso una nuova ecologia dell'abitare e attraverso la riqualificazione di questi paesaggi naturali urbani di cui dispongono le nostre comunità. E il terzo punto è il welfare e le periferie. Come dicevo prima, centri e periferie devono dialogare costantemente e quindi per riqualificare le periferie puntiamo anche su azioni positive di conciliazione vita-lavoro e di sostegno alla crescita formativa per implementare la qualità di questi contesti periferici. Vi ringrazio per l'attenzione, se ci sono domande siamo qui per rispondere volentieri. Grazie.
So, to conclude my speech, I would like you to focus on the 3 challenges which we put forward for the National Recovery and Resiliency Plan. And these 3 proposals and these 3 challenges, we have decided to face them together with the 41 mayors which I already spoke about. First and foremost, we want to focus on the requalification of historical hamlets. Our objective is not to develop, not to exploit anymore. We would like to go and recover what we already have. So the idea is to have citizens to go back to historical city centers and hamlets so that we can enhance the historic centers, and obviously we can give more value to those very peculiar maritime and traditional places we have. Secondly, we have another proposal for the environmental recovery of the suburban areas. The logic is just the same. We do not want to exploit anymore the resources we almost do not have. We want to recover what we already have there, and so we want this dialogue to be existent between suburb areas and the landscape areas which our territory can offer. Then we have a third proposal which tries to stress the importance of the coexistence of welfare and suburbs. So we want to focus on the creation of new urban generations. We want this exchange to be there, and we want to implement policies which can create a better life-work balance. And I would say that this is all for my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and if you have any question, I'm more than glad to answer you. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Francesca Pietroforte for this very clear presentation about Bari, what he is doing, and what he has done, and what will be do in the next years. There is also another city of the Camelot Project, that is Porto, but they could not take part today in the meeting, so I bring their apologies, but they'll follow us online, and they will be present in the afternoon for the second part of the meeting. So I would like to thank all the participants, the delegates, for their kind support and collaboration on this part of the meeting. Thank you very much for being here, and also for the participants who follow us online. Let's have a break for brunch, and see you here in 2:45. So thank you very much.